welcome. I am the Sterling, and today we'll be playing Timberborn. In the last episode, we finally got around to adding tubeways everywhere, which has now sped the transport of resources across the entire map, especially from the dam area to the industrial area. And on top of this, we got stuck into building the first 2 levels of the first forest tower, but now we need to get it finished. And in this episode, that's exactly what we're going to do. So sit back, grab a cold one, and let's get started. So as I said, in the last episode, we got the first 2 levels of the forest tower complete. And in this episode, I actually want to attempt to get the rest of the tower finished. And I wouldn't mind also getting the rest of the storage area finished as well, because at the moment, these 8 large industrial piles is more than enough for this tower so far. But once this is complete, I can guarantee that that is not going to be enough storage for lumber. I also want to get a start on deleting some of the storage that is around the place that is no longer really needed. I started this in the last episode, especially with the dynamite over here, but now all this storage here isn't really necessary. So I'm going to start getting them to empty these so I can delete them. That way we can actually get a start on making the next dam, and so in turn we can actually start the first farm tower. Because this episode, my goal is to actually eliminate all the forests that we currently have outside of the forest tower. And if we can even get a start on doing the first farms, maybe I can even get rid of the farms in this area. But let's be honest, this is wishful thinking. There is a hell of a lot that I need to do. Finishing this tower alone is going to be a lot of work, let alone attempting to continue building up our storage. Doubtful I'm going to start another section of the dam and the next tower. But hey, you never know. Well, that's enough for me babbling on. We've got so much work to do this episode, so there's nothing left to do but for me to hit play and get to work finishing this next part of the tower. Day 13, cycle 126. Yes, you heard correctly. 126. A long time has passed. What have we done? Well, for starters, we finally completed our first lumber tower. And my word, did this take a long time to build. Now, why did it take so long? Other than the fact that it's this big, massive structure that I had to build, the logistics behind it were ridiculous. I was struggling to get the resources needed to actually build this. We weren't producing enough planks. It took a very long time for us to actually get the planks needed. The infrastructure we have in the industrial area for creating planks is good. It could be better, but it is good. But at the same time, we just weren't producing enough planks. And I could have doubled up on the actual production of the planks and it would have solved our issue. But where our limitations were is the production of actually cutting down trees. The forests we have weren't enough. And that was including the first 2 levels of the lumber tower that we had actually created before starting the rest of this endeavor. And then even with the rest of this tower completed, it's actually taken a long time to build up the planks. And why was it that it took so long for us to actually get the planks needed? It all came down to, as I said, the logistics. It came down to the actual transport of logs and the timber planks. Because trying to get lumber into the industrial area to actually build the planks and then to get the planks from the industrial area to the construction itself was very, very slow. I was struggling. We're basically getting them just in time to build them. So to accommodate this, I've actually come up with a new plan. I created a new district. It's called the Haulers. And basically all they do is they operate this section of the tubeway system. They take the resources from the industrial area and then deliver them to the lumber tower, and then vice versa. versa, they take the logs from the tower and give them back to the industrial area. And by doing this, it actually has sped the production up, giving me the ability to actually complete the tower. And it won't be just for this lumber tower. I've decided that the haulers district is what's going to connect every single district on the map. As you see, to save my CPU power from this ridiculous build that I've got planned, I'm going to need to make smaller districts. So every single tower that I build is actually going to be its own district. Yes, I know, the plan's changed a bit. No longer is this entire area going to be one district. As I said, each tower will be its own district. So this new district is no longer called the Dam. It's now Lumber 1. Then here, the second tower will be Lumber 2. And then this one over here will be Farm 1. So forth, so forth. And so as I said, the haulers will connect all these towers to both the beavers and the industrial area. And so far, having a specialized area for hauling has actually solved this issue. We are now transporting goods around the settlement with ease. And I'm prepared to just keep expanding this. But furthermore, this is not all the haulers are going to do. I'm going to create a central hub of storage, which will be maintained and supplied by the haulers. It's going to be located somewhere around here. So all the resources produced on the map will be shipped to this central storage location before then being shipped to wherever they're needed, which should make building new towers, building the metropolis, and even just shipping food and goods throughout the settlement a hell of a lot faster. But this is something that will have to be put on the back burner for a moment, because this tower is still not finished. As you can see, I've begun creating the aqueduct. Now, as you remember, I explained that the aqueduct will actually feed water back into the central tower of the lumber tower when we have a drought and the water inside the actual dam is lowering. For as you see at the moment, the top level of this tower throughout a drought actually gets starved of water. And that's not a good thing, as the top two levels of this tower is pine trees. And that's how we get our pine resin used to make treated planks. The rest of the tower is made up of a level of birch, oak, another level of birch, another level of oak, before 2 levels of pine. So the next thing we need to do is actually add the pumping system from the dam and into the actual tower itself. Now, the way this is going to look is pretty straightforward. I'm going to actually have to use levees and build up the actual dam itself to the height of the aqueduct. But first, I need to actually build the pumping system. And the way that's going to look is I just need to add levees to this location here, just like so, and then put a deep mechanical fluid pump on top, just like so. And as you can see, I've already set the power up to go into the deep mechanical pump, which just comes out the back of this tubeway station that I've plumbed full of power. I have the power shaft coming up to the bottom of the aqueduct. Then on top of the actual power shaft, I've put an impermeable floor and then put power on top of that. As you can see, the power shafts can actually go through the impermeable floor, but putting an impermeable floor on top of a power shaft makes it watertight. This way we can have the power come up to the pump without it leaking. And on top of that, it keeps it nice and neat and hidden. Now, one pump is not going to be enough, because as you can see, the actual hose for the pump only goes down 8 blocks. And so once the water drops below this pump, we're going to have the same issue that we're having already, which is the water will dry up. So we're going to need multiple pumps to get the desired amount of water into the tower. And the way I'm going to do this is make some wall hanging buckets, essentially. So I'm going to grab my terrain blocks and I'm going to put one just under the mechanical fluid pump like so, and then one in front, and then one in front of that. And then a row either side, and then some walls either side before capping it at the front. And then I can go ahead and add another mechanical fluid pump to the front of that. Fantastic. Now, as you see, that takes us down another 8 blocks. And then in the event of a drought, if the water drops below this mechanical pump here, this mechanical pump will then turn on, start sucking water out of the dam once again, filling this bucket for this higher mechanical pump to then start taking water out of that bucket and back into the aqueduct, filling our tower. But once again, this does not take us to the bottom. So I'm going to need to add some platforms and then top it off with 3 4-block overhangs, just like so. Now I can take some levees, make a bucket, before once again filling it with a mechanical fluid pump, which takes us almost to the bottom. So we just have to add one more bucket and then finish that off with one more mechanical fluid pump. Not that I ever think that the level of the dam's ever going to get that low, but better to be safe than sorry. Now all I have to do is go ahead and connect it all with power, just like so. Now there's nothing left to do but build our pumping system, build up the walls of the levee, and then this first tower is complete. So let's hit play and let them get to work. Day 1 of cycle 129. Now we've just had a 3-day drought and I've learned some good news and some bad news, but I'll get back to that in just a moment. For something I forgot to mention before, we've actually done quite a lot of work with leveling out the population. As you can see, we only have 50 beavers now. This is deliberate. I've turned off most of the breeding pods because I wanted to drop the population of beavers down, as they're not doing anything right now but killing my frame rate. Later down the track, when we actually start building the metropolis in this location, then I'll start building up the beaver population. But for the moment, there's no reason having a larger population of beavers because, as I said, they're not doing jack. Over here in the industrial area, I've actually turned off one of the bot assemblers because our bot population was too large. We only need about 350, and even that is too many. We've got 43 unemployed across the entire settlement at the moment. But that 43 is a nice buffer for the times when I actually have to turn on building huts and things of that manner. Once I start building more towers, then I can actually start building our bot population back up. Because at the moment, once again, all it was doing was killing our frame rate while I was trying to build this tower. I was doing this a long time ago. As I said, just forgot to mention it. Now on to the good and bad news about our setup. Good news is, like I said, we just went through a 3-day drought. And I've built a stream gauge here in the aqueduct. Now what the stream gauge does is it actually judges the depth of the water, the greatest depth it's ever been, the current of the water, and the contamination of the water. We're using the stream gauge here just for the depth. When we're not in a drought and the water is raising, it gets to a depth of 0.35 within the aqueduct. And that's due to the fact that that's the height of our overflow of the dam itself over here. But during the 3-day drought, the water actually dropped, even with this pump running. It is now down to 0.07. So the good news is that the pump actually stopped the water from dropping too low. Bad news is one pump doesn't keep the aqueduct full. Now luckily there's a bit of height here in the actual tower, meaning it will take a long time for the water to drop below the level that is actually keeping our fields nice and fertile. But it does mean that the water's dropping and one pump isn't good enough. So I could say, well, hey, unless it's a 20-day drought, we're sorted. Or I can say, well, no, one pump is just not enough. We need 2. And so that's the big question. Am I going to go ahead and redo that entire pumping system that I just built or call it a day? Yeah, I'm going to have to redo the pump. I'm not happy with it just being okay. I haven't gone ahead and built this entire structure for it not to work as planned. And so essentially all I'm going to do is set up a pump on this side, a pump on this side, and have it run down exactly the same as we're doing now. And then I'll just delete that center pump and then we'll be sorted. So there's nothing left to do but rebuild our builders' huts, transport resources back here that we need to build these pumps, and do the whole bloody thing again. Day 21 of cycle 129. And now the tower is complete. We're in the middle of a bad tide and we're easily keeping the water to the correct level, which that's fantastic. So now I can go ahead and delete this stream gauge. Now you've probably noticed as I'm doing all this building, I'm not getting any rubble. The reason for this is because I've hit a point now where it's just too hard to try and find ways to pick it up. So I've been coming down here to demolish buildings and resources, clicking on delete rubble and just deleting it. It makes life so much easier than trying to find stairs down to pick up a piece of rubble that, let's be honest, I don't have room for in the first place. It's not like I'm lacking for timber at the moment. I have 8.1 thousand logs. I'll go back to picking up rubble once we actually have a place to store all our resources. Now that the tower's complete, I'll just have to go through and delete some of these storage buildings, delete the storage buildings that are before and after the actual district crossing here, change a few things up, and as you've probably noticed, as I was building the tower, I've already gone through and started deleting a huge amount of the storage space. I've deleted this district crossing over here for the beavers. I deleted all the power shafts, all the storage, everything out of this area here. I've gone through and destroyed all the power shafts throughout the entire settlement. I've destroyed all our logging. I cleaned up around here in the beavers area. I've done a hell of a lot of work. And personally, I think that looks significantly cleaner. All in preparation for building the next tower. Unfortunately though, that will have to wait for another episode, as this is all the time we have for today. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.